In the quiet village of Nabutu, the night was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft hum of a dim kerosene lamp. Beneath its weak light, a young girl named Amara bent over an old book, her small fingers tracing the words with care. Her eyes shone with a hunger that went beyond the pages, hunger for knowledge, for a life different from the one laid out before. Across the room, her elder brother Jabari watched with a smirk curling on his lips. He leaned against the wall, his voice loud enough for the gathered relatives to hear. "Why are you wasting your time, Amara? Books are useless for girls. You'll end up in the kitchen like every woman in this village." His laughter rang out sharp like a slap, and the others joined in, some shaking their heads, others hiding their chuckles. "Look at her," Jabari pressed on, his pride swelling with each word. "A burden to this family. A future kitchen maid pretending to be a teacher." The words cut deep, but Amara did not lower her gaze. She held her book tighter, her back straighter, as if the ridicule only made her spine stronger. The lamp flickered, shadows dancing on the mud walls, but her eyes did not waver. No tears fell. Instead, something fierce lit within her, a quiet fire that refused to be put out. She did not answer her brother, but her silence spoke louder than any words. She would not give up. At night, when the village was asleep and the crickets sang their endless song, Amara would close her eyes and let her dreams take her far away. She saw herself standing in front of a classroom, chalk in her hand, teaching little girls who looked at her with shining eyes. In her dream, the girls were free, laughing, reading, writing their names with pride. She imagined lifting them out of the silence that had chained so many women before. She imagined being the one who showed them that they were more than just wives-in-waiting or mothers-to-be. She wanted to be a teacher, not just for herself, but for every girl who was told she could not. But when the morning came, reality pressed hard on her. The walls of their small home reminded her of poverty. Her father was gone, and the little money her mother made from selling vegetables barely kept food on the table. School fees felt like mountains they could not climb. Each term was a battle, and every coin mattered. Jabari's voice, sharp and mocking, never let her forget that. "Books won't fill your stomach," he often said. "What good is reading when there's no bread?" Her mother, quiet but kind, never joined in the mockery. She would place a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder whenever Jabari's words cut too deep. In her tired eyes, Amara saw love and silent prayers. Her mother believed in her, but fear kept her lips closed. Confronting Jabari, the loud and proud son of the family, felt dangerous. So she carried her support like a hidden flame, giving Amara small encouragements in whispers. The village, too, had its own chorus. Women at the water well shook their heads when Amara walked by with her books. Men sitting under the old tree laughed as she hurried to school. "She is wasting her time," they muttered. "No man will marry a girl who argues with books instead of learning to cook." The words spread like smoke, filling her ears wherever she went. Still, Amara held on. She hugged her books close as though they were her lifeline. At night, she whispered her dreams to the stars. She told herself that one day the same people who laughed would see her standing tall, not as a burden, but as a light. Poverty could weigh her down, her brother could chain her with insults, and the village could throw its doubts like stones. But inside her was a voice louder than them. It told her to keep going. Hope was all she had, but it was enough. In the face of hunger, whispers, and ridicule, Amara's dream lived on. It was fragile, yet unshakable, like a seed buried deep in dry soil, waiting for the first rain. Amara's school was small, its walls cracked and faded, but to her it felt like a palace. It was the only place where she could breathe freely, where her books were not mocked but welcomed. She often sat under the big mango tree in the schoolyard, reading while the other children played. That was where Kofi first noticed her. Kofi was the son of the school's principal, Mr. Obeng. Most children treated him with a mix of respect and distance, as though being the principal's son made him untouchable. But Kofi was different from what people expected. He wasn't proud or arrogant. Instead, he was quiet, humble, and curious. When he saw Amara reading so intently, ignoring the laughter and noise around her, he felt drawn to her. One afternoon, he walked over and asked softly, "What are you reading?" Amara looked up, surprised that he had spoken to her. She hesitated, clutching the book to her chest. But his eyes were warm, not mocking. Slowly, she showed him the worn pages. To her surprise, Kofi didn't laugh. Instead, he sat down beside her and began talking about how much he loved learning, too. From that day, their conversations grew. They spoke about lessons, about their dreams, about the future that seemed so far away, but still possible. Kofi admired how hard Amara worked, even when everything was against her. He saw the way she studied during breaks, the way she never gave up despite the whispers around. "You're stronger than you think," he told her once, and the words stayed with her like a secret treasure. Slowly, a friendship blossomed. Kofi often shared his notes, explained difficult lessons, and encouraged her when she doubted herself. Amara, in return, found herself smiling more than she ever had at school. With him, she felt seen, not as a burden or a girl wasting time, but as someone with potential. Yet, as much as her heart wanted to share this new friendship, fear held her back. At home, Jabari's voice always lingered in her mind. She knew what he would say if he discovered she was spending time with the principal's son. He would twist it into shame, mock her even more, and maybe even stop her from going to school altogether. So she kept quiet. When her mother asked how her day was, Amara only spoke about lessons, never about Kofi. But at night, when she thought about her day, she often remembered his words. She replayed their conversations in her mind, smiling to herself in the dark. Kofi's kindness gave her courage. His belief in her became another source of strength, another reason not to give up. Though hidden in silence, their friendship became a lifeline for Amara. In a world full of doubt and ridicule, Kofi was proof that not everyone saw her as useless. At least one person believed she could shine. And for Amara, that belief was priceless. Jabari's anger grew with every passing day. The more determined Amara became, the harsher he grew. At first, his words were sharp, but soon they turned into actions. One morning, when Amara was getting ready for school, he grabbed her bag and threw it on the ground. He tore her books apart, the pages flying like wounded birds across the dusty floor. "Enough of this nonsense," he shouted. "You are not going back to that school." His voice carried through the house, heavy with authority, and the relatives nearby nodded silently, afraid to interfere. Amara stood frozen, her hands trembling as she picked up the torn pieces of her books. Her heart felt like it was breaking, but she refused to let her brother see her cry. She swallowed the tears and whispered to herself, "This will not stop me." The next day, when she tried to leave for school, Jabari mocked her uniform, calling it a costume for fools. He laughed loudly, dragging her back inside. Sometimes, he even locked the door from the outside before leaving for the fields, trapping her inside like a prisoner. Amara would sit near the small window, watching other children walk past with their bags, her chest tight with longing. But if Jabari thought he had crushed her spirit, he was wrong. At night, when the house grew quiet and the lamp flickered weakly, Amara would bring out the scraps of paper she had saved. Kofi had begun helping her in secret, slipping her extra notes and exercise books whenever he could. Sometimes, under the shadow of the mango tree, he would quietly explain lessons to her before hurrying home. Amara memorized every word, every explanation, carrying them with her like hidden treasures. She studied in silence, her lips moving softly as she read by the dim light. The walls might have held her captive, but her mind was free, soaring through numbers, stories, and ideas that Jabari could never cage. Each night she felt her strength growing, a strength her brother could not see. His cruelty became fuel for her determination. Her mother noticed the quiet fire in her eyes but said nothing. She would sometimes leave a little food by Amara's side while she studied, a silent act of love, a secret blessing. It was her way of saying, "Keep going, my child, even if I cannot protect you." Meanwhile, Jabari grew more restless. No matter how many books he tore, no matter how many doors he locked, Amara's spirit refused to bend. His pride burned at the thought that his little sister dared to challenge his authority. So his cruelty deepened, but so did her courage. Every insult, every locked door, every torn page only carved her resolve deeper into her soul. Jabari wanted her to give up, but Amara had already made a promise to herself. Nothing, not even her brother's rage, would keep her from her dream. The day the exam results were announced, the village seemed unusually quiet. Children ran through the dusty streets, shouting and laughing, while adults gathered around the notice board at the school, murmuring nervously. Amara's heart raced as she pushed through the crowd, her hands trembling. She had studied in secret every night, every stolen moment, and now it all came down to these few letters on a sheet of paper. When she finally saw her name at the very top of the district list, her chest swelled with a mix of disbelief and joy. "I did it. I really did it," she whispered, clutching the paper as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Around her, other students cheered, but her eyes searched for the familiar figure of Kofi. He was there, a proud, quiet smile on his face, and he pushed forward through the crowd to reach her. "You did it, Amara," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with admiration. "I always knew you could." She smiled, feeling warmth rush through her chest. His praise meant more than anyone else's, more than even the top rank itself. Word of her success traveled fast, and soon even the relatives who had mocked her for years were whispering among themselves. "Did you see? She's at the top. We never thought she could do it." Their voices were tinged with awe, disbelief, and a hint of shame. Amara noticed them staring, eyes wide, mouths half open. They had laughed at her dreams, ridiculed her in front of everyone, and yet here she was, standing taller than their doubts could ever reach. Jabari's face, once full of pride and cruelty, now burned red. His neighbors whispered, casting sidelong glances, and he felt the sting of humiliation deep in his chest. For the first time, he realized the weight of his own words, the cruelty that had defined him. But he forced a smile, pretending not to care, though his clenched fists and tight jaw betrayed him. He did not speak to her, did not congratulate her, and tried to act as if nothing had changed. Amara, however, did not need his approval. She felt a new kind of power, one that came from years of persistence, from refusing to be silenced or chained. And in Kofi's quiet congratulations, she felt something even stronger, a connection that went beyond friendship, built on shared respect, belief, and dreams. That evening, as she walked home, holding her exam paper tightly, villagers stopped her to nod, to smile, to say, "Well done, Amara." She walked past Jabari, her head high, her eyes shining with pride. She did not speak to him, but she felt an invisible weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she understood that success was sweeter when it was hard-won, and that no amount of mockery could ever dim the light of a determined heart. Amara went to bed that night with her dreams not just alive, but alive in full color. She knew this was only the beginning. With Kofi by her side and her determination stronger than ever, nothing could stop her now. The school library was quiet, filled with the soft scent of old books and the faint rustle of turning pages. It became their secret world. Amara and Kofi met there after classes, slipping between the shelves so no one would see them. At first, it was just for studying, exchanging notes, and discussing lessons, but slowly, something deeper began to grow. Every time Kofi looked at her, every word of encouragement he whispered, Amara felt her heart stir in ways she hadn't expected. "You don't have to be afraid of anything, Amara," Kofi said one afternoon, his eyes steady and kind. "I promise, one day you will study freely. No one will stop you. Not poverty, not insults, not even your brother." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, comforting her after years of fear and mockery. She wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to that hope, but the weight of her family's rules pressed heavily on her. Amara's heart felt torn. Every evening, when she returned home, she remembered Jabari's eyes, sharp and watchful, and the harsh words he might use if he discovered anything. Her mother's silent support could only do so much. Tradition and family expectations were strong chains, pulling her back from the freedom her heart longed for. Still, every stolen moment with Kofi reminded her of the life she wanted, the life she deserved. Their meetings became a delicate dance. They spoke softly, shared laughter that could only exist behind closed doors, and built dreams that could not yet be spoken aloud at home. Amara learned to hide her smiles, to walk a careful line between her duties and her desires. Each day she wore her uniform to school, carrying her books and her secret hope tucked tightly in her chest. But secrecy could not last forever. Jabari's suspicions grew, sharp as a hawk's eyes. One evening, he cornered her as she returned from the library, his face dark with anger. "What are you hiding, Amara?" he demanded. "I know something is going on, and I will not allow you to disgrace this family." His voice shook with fury, and for a moment, Amara's courage wavered. She could feel the weight of generations of expectations pressing down on her small shoulder. Yet, even in that moment, she did not break. She only nodded, careful not to reveal anything. Inside, her heart raced, torn between fear and longing. She knew she had to be careful, that every secret meeting was both a risk and a lifeline. And though the world outside the library shelves might judge, threaten, or scold, within those walls, she felt alive. With Kofi, she imagined a future where dreams were not silenced, where learning was not punished, and where love could exist without fear. Amara's heart was caught between duty and desire, tradition and hope. Each secret moment with Kofi strengthened her spirit, teaching her that even in the tightest cages, love and courage could quietly blossom. And though Jabari's shadow loomed over her, she held on, knowing that one day, her heart and her dreams might find a way to soar together. The morning felt different. The air was thick with the smell of cooking fires and dust, but Amara noticed something unusual, a nervous energy in the village that made the birds quiet. She was helping her mother sweep the yard when a car approached, kicking up clouds of dirt. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw who stepped out. Principal Obeng himself, Kofi's father, walking up the path with a calm, serious expression. Amara froze. Her mother's eyes widened, and even Jabari, leaning against the doorway, looked surprised. "What's he doing here?" Jabari muttered, his voice low but full of mockery. Why would the principal's family want to waste their time on her? He laughed loudly, turning to relatives nearby. "Tell me, Amara, do you even know how to behave in a proper family?" Amara felt her cheeks burn, but she stood tall. She had faced humiliation before. This was just another test of her patience. She watched as Mr. Obeng nodded politely to her mother, and then fixed his gaze on her. His presence was calm but commanding, and somehow, it made her feel both nervous and brave. "I have come for Amara," Mr. Obeng began, his voice steady. "I have watched her for some time. Not just her work at school, but her character, her determination, and the respect she shows for learning. She is intelligent, kind, and capable. I would be honored if she became part of our family. The words seemed to hang in the air, impossible and beautiful all at once. Amara's eyes widened in disbelief. Could this be real? After years of whispers, ridicule, and limits placed on her, her silent dreams were suddenly standing in front of her, knocking at the door. Jabari's smirk faltered. He opened his mouth to reply, to make a cutting joke, but nothing came. The neighbors who had gathered outside looked on in quiet astonishment. Even the relatives who had spent years mocking Amara could not find a word. Mr. Obeng's confidence, combined with his praise for her, left no room for doubt. Amara's mother held her hand tightly, eyes shimmering with pride and tears. She whispered, "See, my child? All your hard work, your courage, it has been seen." Amara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of joy, disbelief, and relief. She had dreamed quietly, hoped silently, and now the impossible was real. Jabari tried to regain control, but his words lacked strength. Amara felt a quiet power rising inside her. She realized that all the years of mockery, cruelty, and doubt had prepared her for this moment. She was ready, not just for marriage, but for the life that had always seemed out of reach. A life where her dreams mattered, where her intelligence was valued, and where love could be gentle and real. For the first time, Amara felt the full weight of possibility. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with excitement. The principal's visit was more than a proposal. It was proof that her perseverance, her courage, and her quiet hope could change everything. And as she looked at Mr. Obeng and saw Kofi standing beside him, a small, proud smile on his face, she realized that her dreams were no longer whispers in the dark. They were now real, shining brightly in the sunlight. The village was buzzing with excitement on the day of the engagement. Bright fabrics decorated the small community hall, children ran about with laughter, and the scent of freshly cooked food filled the air. Everyone wanted to see Amara, the girl who had once been mocked and whispered about for daring to dream. But all eyes also turned to Jabari, her brother, who tried to hide his unease behind a stiff smile. As guests arrived and greetings were exchanged, villagers began to whisper among themselves. "Didn't he say she was worthless?" one woman muttered. "And now she's standing beside the principal's son." Another man shook his head in disbelief. The words of Jabari, once so cruel and confident, echoed back at him in the minds of everyone present. His smugness from years past now became the source of his own shame. Jabari's face turned red, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He tried to laugh, to pretend he didn't care, but the murmurs around him grew louder. Relatives who had once supported his mockery now avoided his eye. He felt the weight of every insult he had ever thrown at Amara pressing down on him. Every taunt, every word meant to hurt her, was now reflected in the pride and respect she carried herself with. Amara, dressed beautifully yet simply, walked into the hall with Kofi at her side. Her back was straight, her head held high, and her eyes shone with quiet confidence. She could feel the energy of the villagers, their surprise and admiration, but she did not let it sway her. This was her moment, not Jabari's, not anyone else's. She had endured ridicule, poverty, and cruelty to reach this day, and she knew she had earned every smile and every whisper of respect. When the ceremony began, Amara took a deep breath and spoke, her voice clear and strong. "Education raised me, not your mockery," she said, glancing at Jabari without anger, only with quiet strength. The hall went silent for a heartbeat. Then the words spread through the crowd, carried from one whispering mouth to another. Gasps and murmurs of agreement swept through the villagers. They had seen her perseverance, and now they saw her courage speaking out. Jabari's jaw tightened. He could feel his power slipping, the respect he had tried to claim over her now gone. He had spent years trying to control her, belittle her, and silence her. Yet here she stood, radiant and proud, defying him with nothing more than truth. As the engagement continued, Amara smiled at Kofi, feeling his quiet support and pride. The villagers' whispers shifted from disbelief to admiration, celebrating her intelligence, her determination, and her triumph over the very cruelty that once sought to break her. For Amara, it was more than an engagement. It was a victory over every barrier that had tried to hold her down, and the beginning of a life built on respect, love, and the power of education. The wedding day was filled with joy, music, and laughter. Amara wore a simple yet elegant dress, her face glowing with happiness as she stood beside Kofi. The villagers who had once doubted her now clapped and cheered, their eyes full of respect. For Amara, the day felt like the start of something bigger than herself, a life built not just on love, but on the dreams she had fought so hard to achieve. After the wedding, she and Kofi settled near the school, where they could continue their shared love of learning. Amara became more than just the principal's daughter-in-law. She became a guiding light for the students. She spent her days helping children, especially girls, with their lessons, showing them that education was not a burden but a tool to shape their future. Her small classroom grew as word spread that Amara was patient, kind, and deeply knowledgeable. Girls who had once been told to stop dreaming now sat at her feet, listening, learning, and believing in themselves. Amara made it her mission to make education accessible. She started tutoring sessions for those who could not afford school fees, found books for children who had none, and encouraged parents to let their daughters study. Slowly, the village began to change. Girls walked to school with confidence, and parents who had once laughed at Amara's ambition now sought her advice. Her work rippled through the community, and with each success, her pride in what she was accomplishing grew. Jabari, once the loud, arrogant brother who mocked her every step, now walked with lowered eye. People noticed his changed demeanor, and whispers followed him wherever he went. He saw the respect Amara had earned, the difference she was making, and the admiration people held for her. It was clear to him, painfully so, that he had misjudged her. Yet Amara never gloated. She forgave him, quietly and fully, but the lessons he taught her about cruelty and doubt were never forgotten. Every time she saw him, she remembered the boy who had tried to break her spirit and the strength she had found in herself. Amara's life was not just about her own success. It was about creating a path for others to follow. She watched young girls take their first steps into classrooms she had helped open, guiding them, encouraging them, and celebrating their small victory. With Kofi by her side, she felt supported and loved, yet her heart always carried the memory of the struggles she had faced. In the village, people began to tell stories about Amara, not as the girl who was mocked, but as the woman who changed the future for so many. She had turned ridicule into courage, limits into opportunity, and dreams into reality. And through it all, she remained humble, strong, and determined, a reminder to everyone that perseverance, kindness, and education could truly transform a life and a whole community. Years had passed, and the village had changed in quiet, powerful ways. Amara's work at the school had transformed the lives of countless children, especially girls who once thought education was out of reach. One afternoon, a small, nervous girl approached her, carrying a worn notebook and shyly looking up. Amara's heart skipped a beat when she realized it was Jabari's daughter. "Please, Auntie Amara," the little girl said softly. "Can you help me with my studies?" Amara knelt down, smiling warmly, her eyes shining. She remembered the years of struggle, the nights of secret learning, the ridicule that had once tried to break her spirit. And now, the very child of the brother who had mocked her was asking for her guidance. The irony was not lost on anyone. Villagers whispered among themselves, smiling as they watched the scene unfold. The boy who had once called Amara a burden and worthless now watched silently, humbled, as his daughter received help from the very sister he had tried to keep down. Amara's influence had turned the tables completely. Children ran past, laughing, carrying books, and the village felt alive with learning and hope. People began to call her the principal's daughter-in-law who changed our girl's future. It was not just a title, it was a recognition of her courage, determination, and tireless work. She had become more than a teacher. She had become a symbol of what one person's resilience could achieve. As Amara guided the little girl through her lessons, she thought back to the days of mockery, fear, and secret study. And in that quiet, bright moment, she realized the truth of one lesson she had learned long ago: never mock a dreamer. For tomorrow, the dreamer may rise, not just above you, but above the world you tried to confine them in. And Amara, once ridiculed and underestimated, had done exactly that.